You are listening to the Fashion Guru Podcast with your host, Bill Daly, your fashion guru.
Hey, welcome everyone to the show today. I am so glad you decided to spend some time with us and learn a little more about the men's fashion guru. Hopefully, as you listen to more and more episodes, you'll begin to stack more and more information, more and more data and content, and then you can start to put those things into action. We talk about a lot of different things on this podcast, so you may want to go back and listen again and again. Today on the show, we are going to be having a conversation with Taylor Camp, who's with me, and he comes from the great state of California and San Francisco, and he is a content creator by profession with a passion for fashion. How about that for a rhyme as well? My purpose in speaking with Taylor today is to find out where and when his passion for sartorial pursuits began, and how it's played a part in both his professional life and in his personal life as well. You see, it's pretty clear that we are not to show up for life without any clothes on, but the lines have become very blurry as to what constitutes proper attire for every situation. So we're going to talk about that. Taylor, thanks for being on the show with us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. Taylor, my last guest was Brian Klimek, and he is a very colorful gentleman from the East Coast, as far away from you as he can get. And he's an actuary by trade, but absolutely has loved fashion since the time he was asked by a relative to be a ring bearer in a wedding. And he put on that coveted tux as a little guy, like I did. I was the same way for my godmother, and I was hooked. And but I think as we talk to you, being from California, we'll discover some differences in fashion, and maybe my hallucination is that things are a little bit more casual in California, probably a lot because of the weather and climate, etc. But it'll be interesting to hear those as well. Well, let's take a few minutes to get to know you a bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your profession as a creator, and things like that to kind of kick us off.
I'm a men's lifestyle and content creator, so I've been doing this for over a decade. And I started this my first year of college. I started buying ties for $1 at Salvation Army and thrift stores around my house in upstate New York. And I started just piecing together vintage clothing, kind of getting inspired from Mad Men or kind of old Hitchcock movies and how these old Hollywood actors used to dress, and just kind of piecing together outfits that were comfortable and made sense and just felt good to wear. And I then went off to college in Vermont and I studied communication. So I was just kind of slowly building this from starting end of 2009, early 2010, up until, even now, really. So it's just kind of been a snowball effect with kind of growing my channel, meeting people, and working with brands over these last number of years. So when I went to college in Vermont, I really realized I knew I wanted to be like a small business owner and kind of develop my small business and kind of see where that kind of took me. I didn't know what was really going to happen with it, but I know I was really interested in it. So that's when I kind of had the idea that this could maybe spawn into something bigger. And then it wasn't until I got to New York City in 2015, after I graduated from college, that things like really started to kick off for me. I started working with a lot of PR agencies. I started to go to a lot of events. And I was really growing my brand. My Instagram channel is growing. And it was just really interesting to be around with all these other people that were kind of doing the same thing and inspired by what I was doing and who I was talking to and what I was posting online. I felt like I had a voice. So it was really cool to kind of help other men and help other people kind of find their footing in clothing and what to wear and what not to wear. And it's just been quite the journey. I mean, I never, ever, ever, not to sound corny or anything, I never, ever, ever thought it would go this far in terms of what's happened to it over the years. So it's been a little bit of a roller coaster. It's been very interesting to watch it grow. It's been interesting to watch social media change over the years. So it's been a ride.
Yeah. Well, that is awesome. And you were talking a little bit about your time in upstate New York growing up in Vermont. So you're all about East Coast too. So now you've got a pretty good blend. I don't even need Brian to explain New York. You know all that. Uh,
Yeah.
but so you talked about content creator, men's fashion. I know you're very interested in all things wine and wineries and helping them as well. Is that correct?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Um, since lifestyle was a word that you used, and as we think about wineries, I think of that, not that somebody who has little can't drink wine, but in terms of at a winery with collectible wines and more of that upscale culture that surrounds that, um, how has that how has that evolved? And what part of what you do is still things outside of that?
That's a great question. I've always been passionate about food. I really like eating well. I really like food, fine dining culture. So I think food and wine has really kind of played into that. And it's been interesting to just work with these wineries and have them send me some of their wine, try it, share it with my audience, go to the wineries, make some content at the winery itself. I mean, my father retired in Napa, so it's a great fit to drive up there for a weekend and go to a winery or two and make some content and have a lot of fun. So that's been also an interesting tie-in, not to sound punny or anything, with
Yeah. Yeah.
working with these other outside businesses. I think wine is very much a socioeconomic thing, but I think wine, everyone can drink wine, and I don't think it's just for wealthier white people. I think it's something that all people, all races, all colors can enjoy with themselves or together. So I think it's kind of seen as an inclusive thing, but I think once you start getting into it, it's or wait, it's the other way around. It's an exclusive thing, but it's very inclusive.
Yeah. I suppose kind of like clothes as you and I on our sartorial journeys as far as wine. I mean, if you just drink wine and with because you like it with dinner versus studying wine and understanding the bouquet in it and what
Yeah.
flavors am I flavoring and why is the wine in the north different than the wine in Burgundy, France, or there's all the details and technical side of it that we can become not in a negative sense, but snobs, meaning we're totally focused on that.
Hmm.
Anything that you do. I mean, it can be that with boats and cars and
Yeah.
everything. Um, as far so I'm just interested. I know it's Fashion Guru podcast, but I'm interested in as far as creating content. What all does that include? What does that entail for you?
It depends on the situation. I've worked with DSLRs like a Canon Rebel or an actual camera. I do a lot of iPhone photography. So it depends on the situation. I've done like photo shoots, I've done flat lays, I've done content with video cameras. So it depends on the situation. I've done a lot of this. I mean, I have a website, I've done some blog writing. So the content is all relative to what the business is and what the client wants and what the client think would be best or what they're most interested in. So that's all relative to brand
Okay.
to brand. But it's just usually just Instagram content. And then I'm sure you heard TikTok is probably going to be banned within the year. So that's also an interesting thing to look at because there's a lot of creators that are making like huge amount of money on TikTok, and that's just going to go away after a year. So everyone's probably going to bounce back to Instagram, but maybe there's going to be a spinoff. So that's a whole thing. That's kind of interesting to take point on too.
And is that actually happening, or is that talking points? How do you think it's going to go away?
I I unfortunately really do think TikTok is going to go away. I've
Huh.
been very much reading up about it the last couple of days. It's unfortunate. what I've read is they want to sell it, but it's going to be worth multi-billion of dollars. So not a lot of people are going to be able to afford it, and the Chinese government is using all our data for whatever they want to do, which is clearly a privacy concern. So I think there's a lot of reason. I mean, Congress has already overwhelming responding have said yes to banning it. So it doesn't seem like it. I don't think it's going to be around the future. It's too bad, but I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I will say that TikTok is definitely the least used. I'm the least familiar with TikTok. I was a Facebook, LinkedIn guy, most of the time that I'd been on socials anyway, and then added Instagram by the leading of some friends saying, "Oh, you need to, you should have an Instagram page,"
Yeah.
and I did it, and wow, was I overwhelmed. Grew pretty quickly. It's just different is all. I mean,
Yeah.
how we do it, but I want to go back to that actual point, because one of the things you said is that social media has changed everything. And I agree. And I haven't even been in your space, but we talked a little before the podcast, and you and I met on socials.
Yeah.
Met all but about 3 or 4 people that have been on my podcast. I met on socials. And so it really has brought us together. I have several bespoke tailors that I use for my other for creating product and suits and stuff for myself and others, and they're literally in 4 corners of the world, and yet everybody's just as normal as you and I sitting here talking, which is really
definitely.
There was a lot of I had some ideas in my head what people in Europe were like, and what people in Asia, wherever. But we're really after the same thing. We're trying to make a living. And for the most part, we're trying to make the world a better place. We're trying to do the next right thing, and we're trying to do something to better ourselves. Those are whatever that looks like for anybody is, whatever. But it really made me feel better about what I was doing. And as you mentioned, exclusively inclusive it became. And that's what the fashion world has become to me. Something I thought was off limits is now I feel really a part of it as a contributor. And everybody has been so generous and so nice and so willing to help and encourage and promote and whatever it takes. I am dead set that I'm going to PT Uomo, Florence, Italy.
In June?
No question. Not in June. I can't go that fast. I'm hoping for January 2025. So
nice.
I've got some things to put into place and to be able to go and that would be a great pièce de résistance, so to speak, to what I've been doing, and probably just the beginning. But well, let's I've prepared a couple of questions to try to keep probably mostly me on track, but the questions are geared to, one, take us a certain direction, but also get your input from a West Coast standpoint, because my hallucination is that things are different. And I may find that everything's much more the same. What do you think sets the fashion scene for men apart in California to other regions, let's just say in the country? Do you notice any difference, especially since you've been on both coasts?
The thing with San Francisco, I've kind of realized with living here almost 3 years, is it's a little bit more casual, but I think the pieces that certain men are wearing here are more expensive, and people aren't wearing like suits and ties here as much, but the pieces that they're wearing together are from more expensive stores. It's kind of more smart casual here that I think people don't realize. Like, yes, this is a tech town or a dying tech town, but there's people that a lot of these New York City or LA stores are here. And a lot of people here are from the East Coast or other like more affluent parts of the country. So people understand how to dress, or they understand these brands, or how to wear a suit or what not to wear. That's what I've kind of realized here.
So you use the word expensive, and when I hear expensive, I don't even hear overpriced. I hear high value. Now,
Yeah.
some of it has to do with the name,
Hmm.
Gucci or Brioni or
Yeah.
whatever, um, Canali. We um, if you break those pieces down, they are better quality. They're heavier. They're better put together. Now,
Hmm.
a Ralph Lauren polo shirt could be put together in Bangladesh if that's the flavor of the day, but under a certain
No. Yeah.
specification, um, we see that. I specifically wore what I wore today, which is a custom sport coat out of a real lightweight summer wool. And I'm pairing it with jeans. You can't see that, but to give it that smart casual look, as you say, I rarely am without a sport coat, unless I'm mowing the lawn, Taylor. But um, I can certainly see that. My friend Joel Schemmel, who's a very successful realtor in Sarasota, Florida, he said exactly the same thing. And that, people would ask him to take his tie off if he approached somebody, picked him up in their private plane to go look at a $10 million beach house, in a tie. They're like, take off your tie and relax. That's just the flavor down there, and
Yeah.
that's awesome. Um, do you see, well, let me back up a minute. So I've had this conversation with a couple of different people, and when people look and see people or see runway fashion shows, usually they're on TV because most people don't go to normal people don't go to
Yeah.
runway fashion shows if they're not in the industry. When you see, the person with the wide shouldered, weird lampshade on the head and different colors and clogs that are this high, for guys and women that are wearing a full-on suit, with which I happen to like that look, or with something just really really out there.
Yeah.
We don't see those people walking down the streets of Beverly Hills or San Francisco or whatnot, do we?
No.
No. Nor
That's the thing. It's interesting that you mentioned that because I always thought the runway, like I personally, I've always not been interested in what's on the runway because that's not real, that's not approachable, that's not what women are wearing.
right.
I think for this whole thing that kind of got me started, it's like kind of what I was originally saying. It's like, what am I gonna A, feel comfortable in? B, what can I afford? And see what can I get the most out of my clothing. Like I don't want to buy a new like five suits every season. I want to invest in quality. I want to invest in something that's better made. I want something that's going to last, you know, at least 3 or 4 seasons. And get good wear out of everything that I own. So I always thought the runway was just not really that big of a deal. Like, yeah, some of these big fashion houses are making new clothes every single year, and they want to showcase to these fashion editors or celebrities of what they're going to show or going to be selling for the next several years. But I've always thought that's not the direction. I think that's more like women. I mean, there's men and women's runway shows, but I feel like that's more like accessory and trend based, and I've always thought that men's clothing is more not accessory, the opposite. It's more of just what it is, and classic men's clothing doesn't really change. So that doesn't, in a way, doesn't really have. I mean, there's only so much you can do with classic men's clothing. I'm sure you know too, and that's what's great about it.
Right.
That's what.
We could stop the podcast right there because you just knocked the proverbial ball right out of the park. That's exactly. That's my point every show. Exactly. So thank you for sharing that. You didn't think you were going to do that well, I would suppose, but that's exactly right. And when I first started looking at that, I was thinking, gosh, do people really dress like that? And I
No.
know a very minuscule handful might do that for shock value, or
Yeah.
to go to a club somewhere or whatever. But as I try to tell people, runway shows are like concept cars for the auto industry.
Exactly.
These are ideas of color. They might be shape. They might be this and that. But the whole reason that I love and am addicted to classic fashion is that what I buy today, if I take care of it, like I talked about on the last episode, it's going to be good 20 years from now.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if you look at Cary Grant, Fred Astaire, and a lot of these guys that dressed in the 1930s, 40s,
Yeah.
you know what? We haven't deviated from that stuff very much at all. The lapel might have changed a little bit, the bagginess, the shoulder, the pants today are more flat front than pleated, but I would imagine pleated will be coming back. Some guys I know wear that still
Yeah, they did.
style.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what I was hoping your testimony about what you're seeing is, because I agree with you 100%.
See, it's interesting because I like clothes, but I don't like fashion. I like style. I like personal style, but I'm not interested in what Gucci is going to be presenting at their next runway show this summer in Italy. Who cares?
Yes. Let's peel this back a little bit, because what you just said is absolutely awesome. You said, I don't like fashion, I like style. Run with that a little bit and tell me, what's the difference for the person listening to the show today?
Style is what a man does with an article of clothing, how he wears it, how he doesn't wear it. Fashion is a new catalog collection that Ralph Lauren just released that is sent to your house. You're looking online or looking on your iPad of maybe what to buy next.
Yes, absolutely. And I got to admit that I didn't always know that difference. I thought the words were like Kleenex and tissue. I mean, I thought they were interchangeable, but they're absolutely not. What you said is what I posted just probably several days ago, that, and I think it was Coco Chanel or somebody like that had said, style is what you do with fashion. And, people, and I didn't realize that until fairly recently. I did kind of an impromptu study, and I went March 15th. I went 3 years without wearing the same outfit twice.
That's awesome.
3 years. And it's not because I have 985 suits. It's because I intentionally purpose the clothes that I have so that I know it's going to match or mix and match with this and this and this and this and this. And if I see a tie that I like or a shirt that I like, and I can only wear it with one thing, I probably won't get it.
No, yeah. I don't, it's important to have things that are interchangeable you can wear with the rest of your wardrobe.
Yeah. I agree. Steve Harvey said that. He goes through that litany on social media. You need a blue suit, a gray suit, a black suit, a brown suit, a blue shirt, a white shirt, and about 3 tied. And you intermix it, and that's really what it's all about. Beyond that, you just have some fun and do some other things. Could you share some insights into the key fashion pieces or styles that are maybe in your wardrobe? Are you still carrying on the Mad Men, as you mentioned? More classic. Is that vintage you use?
Yes. In the summer, I like JFK, like Nantucket style. I wear Madras shorts and polos, a lot of linen. I love boat shoes. I love Sperry topsider.
Okay.
So that whole look is kind of me in the summer. And then the winter, I mean, I love tweed. I don't wear tweed as much compared to New York. I love all things tweed. I love double mocks. I have an Alan Edmond pair of double mocks that I absolutely live in. That, I mean, I wish they don't make the same style anymore, but it's just a brown double mock mahogany that I wear all the time. I like penny loafers a lot. I have a few suede pairs, and then, I mean, other than I have running shoes, but I exercise in, but I mean, and I have a few sneakers, but I definitely it was interesting because my style kind of changed at first. I found myself wearing wingtips a lot. And then I've kind of realized I like other kind of more historic. At first, I did not like double monks at all, and then they kind of grew on me. And then once I started wearing them, I just couldn't stop wearing them. So it's kind of interesting how like my footwear. I've noticed my footwear taste has kind of evolved too
Yeah.
over
Double
time.
monks are by far my favorite. I probably got 8 or 9 pairs of double monks. I absolutely love them. Double
Yeah,
and single. I like single monks too, but just that whole look. And I keep thinking, gosh, maybe I shouldn't, invest so much in this particular style. What if it goes out? And I'm reading some, Alan Flusser dressing the man or whatever.
yeah.
And guess what? They still wore them back then. So I think I'm in pretty good shape, going forward for sure.
I don't think they're gonna ever get out of style.
Exactly. How do you so fortunately in my regular job in the store, I own a retail store. I can dress up every day in full on suit and tie and whatever I want, or I can dress casual. I could go in a golf shirt and jeans if I wanted to, but I just choose not to. Um, Uh, and so, as I've learned from people writing emails to me or DMing me on Instagram, and I understand that some people just they don't have to dress up for work.
Mhm.
Um, how do you create or see things happening, or what you write about people in a casual sense, creating your words smart casual? I've got a I've got a page on Pinterest called Sharp Casual, which is probably just a little bit different, but similar to the idea. Um, in the workplace, where as you work from home, a lot of people are working from home. Um,
Yeah.
how do you incorporate that in and still make yourself feel good for the job?
Me personally or other people?
For you, and then what are you noticing? Because I would imagine you bump into other people who do the same thing in the same way, and so forth. What are you noticing?
I've noticed definitely less ties in that men have been wearing. The ties are just not, I mean, they definitely have a place, but I feel if men these days are literally wearing a blazer or a sport coat, they automatically feel well dressed.
Hmm.
And I don't think that's always correct for the occasion. And I think that's what some men don't really understand because they think that, oh, or they, I've kind of learned that men don't understand how things should fit as well. I think that I see a lot of these, like my dad's generation, anything from the 80s or 90s, I think should just be thrown to the wayside. And I think men are kind of wearing things that are a size too big
Yeah.
or that they don't realize because they don't have anyone telling them that. And then you get like the wife or the girlfriend that thinks that they know how to dress a man, which I also don't think is really true because I think men should style men. I think men should dress men. I think men that actually know how to dress should help other men with
Right.
how they dress. If that makes sense.
Man, it's almost like you read a script, because I mean that's the whole mission of the podcast, is to help men elevate their level and learn how to
Yeah.
dress better. That's awesome. But that, the whole thing. And I heard a friend of mine who's a coach for me say a pickle doesn't know what the pickle looks like on the outside of the jar. They
Yeah.
can only see one dimension, and when we have input, or obviously you don't want feedback from a guy who doesn't know how to dress well, but if somebody knows how to dress well, that's probably the best person. I agree. Not that
Yeah.
there are women who can, do very well at guiding you and so forth. But I learned a long time ago, if you want something, find someone who has or does what you want, and then just emulate them. Just
Yeah.
do what they do and ask them questions and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of what I do here too. I just need to stay curious, so
Mhm.
that I don't buy my own publicity, and keep learning, because I want to know what's going on out there. Uh,
Definitely.
yeah. Um, let's see. Um, Speaking of social networking, do you
Can
have a question? Yeah,
I
yeah,
mention something?
of course.
I just want to say one thing. What this whole thing is kind of very much about to me is like you mentioned, Professor Dressing the Man is like not only wine and like clothing too. Like this is very much like about education and like teaching yourself how to do these things. Like
Mhm.
teaching yourself how to not tie the necktie, teach yourself how to fold a pocket square, teach yourself how to dress yourself well, teach yourself what bottle of red wine I should drink with this lamb chop or steak. Like I think like the internet has been like a positive outsource to meet with these other people and like kind of learn from each other and figure out like what like how to do these things and like self-help and self-learning. I think I've very much like use my own platform to help myself, but also to help other men with dressing and wine and other life-related topics. So I think that's
Yeah,
also another
excellent.
that's another really point to like take note of as well.
Yeah, that is an excellent point. And it isn't about telling somebody you have to do it this way or you have to do it that way. We can do anything we want, but like it or not, there are certain rules, you know,
Yeah.
for, don't walk around with all your buttons buttoned on your jacket. Well, of course you can if you want. The jacket's honestly not designed to have two buttons buttoned.
No, absolutely
Say that
not.
it's contoured in shape. So there's a reason. Once somebody understands the reason, oh, that makes sense. I would never wear a sport coat without a pocket square because there's a pocket there. I need to
Yeah.
put something in it, that kind of a thing. I think when I go to let's say I go to a dinner meeting at a chamber event and a guy's wearing his standard blue blazer, which is fine. It's even pressed. He's got a pair of gray slacks on, no pocket square. He's wearing a button down collar, and he's not wearing a belt. He's got belt loops, but he's not wearing a belt. And it's not a cinch and it's not, he doesn't have suspenders either,
No.
and it's one little thing that can ruin the whole, or
I agree.
or all that stuff is in place and it looks like he drug his shoes behind a van. And they're bouncing
Square
down
tip.
Santa Monica freeway, and
Oh yeah.
stuffed up. That just drives me crazy, especially
Oh
when
yeah.
you nice pair of Allen Edmonds or something.
Oh yes. The square tip shoes are really bad.
Yes.
Improper footwear is a thing I see a lot of men wearing that
Yeah.
they don't know what they're doing with. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it. They don't know. And so I've taken it upon myself to try to assemble some friends and some professionals in the industry to give guys a course. And I'd be crazy if I didn't realize that there are some wives and girlfriends and other things that listen to my podcast to help their husbands and their boyfriends. Hey, you got to listen to this. But it's all about, and this is one of the other things about when I was home for COVID. I had COVID one time when they were making you stay home, and I own my own business, and I would have gone in, but I did it for my employees. And
Mhm.
I was home, and every single morning I got up, I took a shower, I put on the same clothes that I would have worn to the store, and I sat at the dining room table and I did my work every day. And
Mhm.
it's because I felt better about myself. And I know that if I don't get up and take a shower and I lay around if I'm sick, which I'm not very often, I'm going to feel worse.
Mhm.
So I get up as though I'm not, and I still may be sluggish, but I'm going to feel a lot better in the workplace. And I've thought about you before in kind of preparing for this. And I've always worked at an office, at a store. I've never worked from home.
Mhm.
Um, tell me a little bit about the discipline of doing that. And are there any little tips and tricks that you do to keep yourself from not compromising your professionalism? And maybe you don't do anything different, but can you address that a little bit, what you see?
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up. I have to shower every single morning and I have to eat something or kind of like what you're saying, I'll just like not doing anything. I'll end up not doing anything. So it's very important for me to have like almost a morning routine in place. Because I mean, it almost gives you something to look forward to, and then if you don't have things to look forward to, you just kind of put things off to the side and just become lazy, and that's just not good. So,
Right. So when you go to, you go to clients, obviously their location
mhm.
as well. You put all the stuff together, you might communicate, but then when you have to come by and talk about layouts, and maybe you don't, maybe everything's done electronically, but
Yeah.
and you have to go. What's your standard outfit look like, if there is such a thing that you wear for professional purposes?
I like banker stripe shirts. Those I have a green one from Nantucket that I really like, but I actually it's the brand is called Nantucket, but I wear it tucked in,
Yeah,
which is totally
yeah.
fine. And it looks I have it on. I just recently posted on my Instagram.
Way to be a rebel, Taylor.
Yeah, exactly. I like chambray shirts a lot too. I wear a blue blazer, a pair of tweed pants, and then my double mocks, and maybe a tie and a pocket square. That's pretty
Yeah,
much the blue blazer is like, I mean, every man, I'm sure
yeah.
you know.
Have to have one. I have to have
Yeah,
one or five. Yeah.
exactly.
Um, so by just doing that is, and I call that sharp casual.
Mhm.
Um, the um, but because the bar has been low, you can wear very comfortably what you just described and walk into a room and be here.
Yep, exactly.
And that's good too. You didn't have to wear a tux, you didn't have to wear a three-piece suit, you were comfortable, and you probably make people feel comfortable while still being a little step above. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting because that's only because of COVID and because I'm in California. I think if it
Yeah.
was in New York, I think it would be a little bit different. Then I would maybe have to wear a three piece suit, and then I would have to like raise it up. But I mean, since the standards isn't, I mean, you're in Iowa, sure the
Yeah.
standards are very
Yeah.
low.
Well, you think so. We just sell corn and potatoes and wear overalls, but we're pretty urban here as well, or at least I'm trying to be. It's we're a big enough area where I'm at, 400,000 people. I know it's nothing like what you're used to, but it's not small town America where we're at. Um, and Yeah, I just like doing it. I like to keep people guessing. Um, I don't do it so that I can stand out. Um, I do it so that yeah, it commands attention. And like it or
Yeah,
not, we talked about this a little bit, or at least we briefly did. Judgment's not a good thing. Save judgment for the Lord, but everybody judges. We all do.
yeah,
We're all guilty of it. And most of us will make a judgment about somebody before they open their mouth,
house.
even if
Yep.
you're the best speaker in the world. Um,
Hmm.
they may not hear you speak. And so they're going to make decisions. And so why not take all that away and just approach with something that is clean, professional, pressed, so that people are listening. And that's kind of where I'm at. When I started this, and you may know my story or you may not. I explained it on the pilot and I explained it on a couple other things last season, a couple other episodes. But I had a gentleman come in my store, and I don't use his name because some people that listen know him. And I like him, but he came into my store. He called, set an appointment to talk about advertising and help create revenue for my store with a new advertising platform he had. He made his appointment. He was right on time, but he showed up in golf shorts, an untucked, semi wrinkled golf shirt, um, kind of disheveled hair, and flip flops. And I was just,
Flip
I
flops
was,
are so bad.
yeah, I
I
was
hate
taken
flip
back.
flops.
I was taken back. And guess what? Casual, you look just fine. If you're going to get a burger after you play golf, that's fine. But he
Yeah.
came into my store on a professional basis to talk to me about helping me make money, and I couldn't even focus. And this was
Mhm.
before all this happened. No
Yeah.
podcast, no Instagram. I was already dressing well, but none of this intentional stuff. And that's where I said, I told him, I said, I appreciate the information. Why don't you let me think about it? He followed up. I said, nah, it's a no for me. I'm not going to move on. And it may well have been a good deal for me, but completely based on my judgment of his attire, which to me communicated
He
how
doesn't
I
care.
feel about your business. I just thought, well, gosh, if you take care of me like you take care of you, I'm in trouble. And so, right or wrong, that's the way it was. And so we have to understand that people make those judgments, and so let's do our best to dress it up. And I thought, if I can help some guys spend 2, 3, 4, 5 on the tops, $1,000, putting together a great outfit with some really nice anchor pieces and a couple of great pairs of shoes and shirts, and show them how to do all the things you suggested a little bit ago. I'm crazy enough to believe that they could 10x their sales.
Yeah.
I really do. And then what they spend on, their outfits and everything else, which is just tools of the trade, it'd be nothing compared to what they make in better income and revenue and all that
Definitely.
kind of stuff. So that's the genesis of how we ended up here. And now I just keep peeling back the onions and find little nuances and little pieces. But in any event, well, let's we talked about this a little bit, and we've already addressed a little bit. I want to, because we're running out of time, I want to talk about how you feel, or what role does social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook — I don't use Snapchat, so I can't speak to that, but let's try those, Facebook and Instagram. How do those, as it relates to men's fashion and the people you see on those social platforms, how has social media changed how we buy things, how we see things before we buy things, and how much we are encouraged to make a purchase? I don't know if that's too much all at once, but if you got the gist of that, what's your
it's a very good question. I've seen larger influencers sell styles or sell brands that aren't good quality, that I think give certain men the wrong perception of how things should fit or how things should look. Sometimes I've realized, I've seen some of these larger influencers, partner with Express or Macy's or some of these brands, or H&M or Gap, that I just I don't think will even honestly be around in the next 5 or 10 years, that I think should not really, for the most part, maybe one shirt maybe, but I think most of these brands, I think there's better option. Might have to spend a little bit more money, but I think there's other retailers that can offer a better style and a better fit at maybe a little bit more expensive price. But I think what certain men particularly don't really understand, that clothing is an investment, and what you're going to buy, it's going to last you hopefully for years. And I think some of these influencers are pushing some of these brands or products that are low quality or not quality, which is kind of frustrating, because I'll look at this and be like, I've tried this before, or I know this brand, I've worn this brand, and I know this is not yeah, this person's getting paid for it, and he's saying, okay, go buy this. But I've worn this brand, I know this person, I know how this fits, and I know what the quality, I have a good idea of where they source their fabrics from, and that's not going to actually look well, or that's not going to be the most flattering fit, or that's not going to be a flattering piece of clothing item compared to something that might cost someone a little bit more expensive. So I think there's a lot of misperception of what to buy, what not to buy, and what looks good and what actually looks good on a gentleman.
Agreed. No, I agree. And I have seen some that I respect a lot, some high-end fashion models from the United States and overseas that I've seen modeling for some of the very stores you talk about. And I think the latest news, I think Express is on its way. I think they're closing up
Yeah, I
stores and
saw that.
everything's going away. And I've shopped around at a lot of different stores just to gain perspective. And Express is one of those stores where 99% of everything in there is a skinny fit. It's 100% polyester, and
Yeah,
it's still $250 for a sport coat. And you're like, God, are you kidding me? And
yeah.
what we don't see is that just like the homes on HGTV, it only costs $1,200 to remodel this kitchen. That may be true, but all the materials were donated, and so was the labor. So, but in clothes, if and I'm not even going to mention names because some could be listening. And they put on that $59 sport coat from the website on social media. I guarantee you there was at least $150 worth of alterations done just so that it could look halfway decent.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, the consumer looks at that and goes, I'm going to spend $60 and I'm going to look like this guy. And
absolutely not.
no, you're not. Uh, and
Yeah.
the armholes are this big and the sleeves are that much too long. And here's, they can't even button the coat because
Yeah,
it'll make a big, and that's the thing where we need to educate. And you spoke to that, which I so appreciate how you did that. It's the education piece that we need to talk about so that when people make good decisions, spending $1,000 on a custom suit is not that big a deal when we understand why and how. I mean, that's not, you can spend $1,000. My wife and I were in Chicago a season or so ago and just happened down the Miracle Mile there to a store and went in, and a sport coat for $3,000. And I'm looking, I'm like, there is nothing custom about this. This is 100% label pricing.
yeah.
And or $10,000 purse, and you're like, but that's fine. That's why people buy it, so they can show off to their friends. But you can get so much for so little.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I hope that I'm also going to increase the opportunities for people who like tailoring and sewing and alterations and all that, and fast forward their businesses, because that's a lost art too.
Definitely.
We're
Yeah,
not seeing, how many haberdasheries do you see? I mean, you see the Macy's and you see the Chanel's and you see all the different things in San Francisco, but where's the last time you saw a mom and pop haberdashery on the corner that the guy who did it 40 years ago is still at it?
Yeah,
It's
not
just
many
not,
left.
it's just
Yeah.
not, it's not there. It's not, we have one here, literally one.
Mhm.
And so anyway, what any prognosticating about what's to come in fashion, if you've seen and what you've written about and what you're
I
guessing?
think what's to come is this, like, brick and mortar is just going to continue to close, and I think it's just going to be like a Bonobos sales model. It's just going to be shipped to your home, and if it doesn't fit you, you're just going to send it back and then get the size that fits you. Or there's going to be some sort of like AI, like that you're going to be standing in your house and go like this, and it's going to find out your exact measurements. I think everything is just going to be done through computers and the internet for the most part in the future. I think malls, like, I kind of like all these mall brands are just going to continue to decline. And I don't think there's really much of a market for brands like Express or Gap anymore.
Right. I agree. I absolutely agree. And yet, what's sad about that is gone are the days where we get to sit and talk face to face and shake hands and, go
Yeah,
back and see my favorite tailor or do this and that. It's just, here's my ID number, here's my credentials, send me another one. And I'm trying to not do that. I just delivered a bespoke suit that I had made for a friend of mine for a business event in New York. And, everything was, he loves it. And he sold suits for several years, with Joseph A. Bank. And
yeah,
he said, this is the best fitting, most comfortable suit I've ever worn before. And it made it 100% worth it. And
yeah,
it's still cheaper than some of the local the local department stores if you were to go through their custom program. So anyway, it's great stuff today. Any other last comments that you want to share?
I want to mention, you mentioned Cary Grant, and Cary Grant's my favorite actor.
Yeah.
So I've always loved Cary Grant's style, and he's always someone I've looked up to.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, I think I actually spoke about it on my last podcast. He went to Hollywood in 1932 when he got started, and it began almost immediately because that was the difference between fashion and style. Cary Grant he's got unrecognizable or recognizable, iconic style that it doesn't matter what shape you look at, what place you're from, who you are, you recognize it. And that's kind of the style I try to emulate as well. So we're kindred there for sure. One of the comments, my last comment is going to be, empty promises. One of my last comments, you talked about liking that Mad Men style, and I was doing a little research for a past episode, and in GQ magazine, it was talking about some of the prognosticators saying it's going to go to a dull, drab, boring, grays, browns, Mad Men sort of flavor. And I'm like, cool. I like that look. That doesn't bother me at all. It's how you wear the color, not the color, Yeah. And so I think the great thing about dressing classic is it doesn't matter what the next trend is, because it doesn't affect you. And just keep doing what you're doing, and you keep standing out and all that. So what's on the horizon for Taylor?
Moving back to Napa soon, I think.
Nice.
I'm talking to doing social media marketing for a wine bar.
Nice. Well, that would be great. And if especially if you're a wine enthusiast, there's probably not a better place to be than Napa in the United States anyway, for sure. Oh, that is awesome. Well, again, thanks for sharing with us today, Taylor. I had a lot of fun. It was great to get to know you a little bit better, and we'll see you more on the socials for sure. Appreciate your input. I hope you, the listener, has some takeaways from today. You can always go back and listen to the podcast. You can also, after each podcast, there's a page with a little bit of information. Taylor, do you mind if I also give out your Instagram handle, Vintage Tie Guy?
Yeah, that'd be great.
We'll put that on there as well. So if you want to get a hold of Taylor out in California or wherever you are and ask some questions, you can do that too. Or maybe you've got some. You're a wine enthusiast. That would be great. If you think, or as we wrap up this episode of the Fashion Guru podcast, I want to remind you of a few things. Megan, go ahead and cut that. I'm going to start again. In one, two, three. To our listeners, if you think you missed anything, you can simply listen again, or you can also watch it on our new YouTube channel. Search for the Fashion Guru podcast, and voila, there it is. As we wrap up this episode of the Fashion Guru podcast, I want to remind you of a few things. The main focus of the Fashion Guru podcast is to call men of all ages to a higher level in how to dress well in the world by providing new insights, ideas, and examples of how to do just that. We will also showcase endless resources from around the world to help you create the perfect look and develop your own personal style. The second focus is to celebrate all of my friends like Taylor and trusted colleagues in their fashion-related businesses as well. Our job is to connect you to folks who can steer you in the right direction, create a plan, and provide the products and services you need to make your sartorial dreams come to reality. I often say I'd much rather do business with a trusted advisor than a complete stranger, and hopefully this podcast has connected you and allowed you to do just that. I learned many years ago that you have to give it away to keep it. So anything we can do to support you, the listener, and the professionals surrounding us, we're all in. If any of you would like to get in touch with Taylor, his Instagram is simply @TaylorCamp. And I am sure he wouldn't mind, as he told you just a second ago. If you want to join our email list, you can do so by dropping me a note at hello@thefashiongurupodcast.com. Please use the new email address. If you've had another one, as this is the one I'll be answering. And I would also love to hear from your suggestions for other podcast topics. If you know somebody in the industry that would be good to have on the show, I would love to do that. And you can put them in touch with me. On the landing page, there is our website, thefashiongurupodcast.com. Are you starting to hear a theme here? Me too. It talks about, and you can fill out a form and it'll send me a message, and we can start the conversation. You can also reach me on Instagram by searching @BillDalyFashionGuru and DM me as well. I have literally hundreds of fashion ideas and outfits that I have put together on there that you can take a look at. Please follow me there and like what you like, and please scroll past what you don't. It's just that simple. But know that I really support or appreciate everybody's support. Let's meet here again soon, shall we? The Fashion Guru podcast is recorded right here in Bettendorf, Iowa, in the USA. We are produced by Blue House Socials and underwritten by Second Chance Productions, Abbey Carpet Gallery, and 111 Ventures, LLC. Please don't forget that life is way too short to wear boring clothes. So dress it up, America. We're out.